Okay, we haven't been here quite a while. Hopefully things are going to be a little better. You know, the pace of life is really crazy. However, between those happening, the daily happening that we have, there is a bridge that goes on the two extremes, and I call it the bridge of life. So, and that bridge goes between crazy chase that we have, the grind that we have, the rat race that we have, to a complete shanti. You know, like, you know what shanti is?
No.
You know what shanti? Shanti is like state of euphoria. Like, it's all good, man. Shanti. However, in between them, there are many different levels. The problem is, of course, is how to choose a place to place ourselves, in order for us to maneuver between those two extremes. And and anytime you make a decision, like anything else, there's always something that you gain and something lost. You can't make a decision; it's a win-win situation. The only thing it is like this is Torah. Everything else, you gain something, you lose something. It's always like this. So, so if you're going to go and you're looking for money and you're very, there's a price to pay. And if you're looking to live very spiritual life, well, there's a price to pay. If you want to live like a Russian Oglirach or whatever it is, gazillionaire, there is a price to pay. And if you want to live like a guy in India that has nothing, there's also a price to pay for that as well. So how do we actually do that? It's I mean, for whatever reason, we always seems to be lost when we don't do it. So even though there are tremendous gaps, one should know that there is something to do, and you should really know that the pie of life is more complete. The more you bite it, the more you have to bite. The more you bite into life, the bigger life gets. And when you don't choose life, this is how smaller lives get. And it's a very interesting phenomena. The big rabbis and Mekubalim taught us that real life are never a choice between options and different directions. They're not. On the contrary, life really exists in what they call in Chassidut Nesiyat Afachim, carrying on the differences. In other words, making the differences legitimate. They're there, maneuvering between the differences. In other words, when we are aware of the different extremes, we actually use that to get us going, rather than to put us into a state of anxiety that we can choose, and so on and so forth. So, for example, if you love, the concept of love is love giving or is love receiving? If you're talking about proper education, is that giving very defined boundaries or giving people freedom and space to choose? Is learning a collection of knowledge or internal processes of your experiences? What is knowledge? Every effort that we have to take something that is alive into a concept of either or, you should know, is doomed to a failure, and it really kills the livelihood or kills life in it. That specific concept the Baal Shem Tov used for our matter, they call it zrizut bemetinut, to be agile, to be quick, but in moderation, which seems like a conflict, but it's not. The zrizut is doing things quick, is the sense of ambition that we have all the time inside of us, that makes us want to go and achieve and move and great and possess and so on and so forth. And the other way, the moderation, is the ability that we have to collect further more, let's say, patience, acceptance, and so on and so forth. However, one should know that not quickness, not the moderation, could exist without the other. You have to have both of them. And the real way to choose is not choosing quickness or moderation, and not a combination of percentage, let's say 70% quickness, 30% moderation, and so on and so forth. That's not acceptable also. The real way to choose is completely different. It's either zrizut bemetinut, in other words, quickness in moderation, or not this and not that. Either you take the whole pie, or you end up with nothing. You can't take percentages, pick and choose as you go. And which is, by the way, when we say zrizut bemetinut, quickness in moderation, it's not a pshara, it's not a compromise that I have to that I'm making. You know, I'll take kulot bet shamayim and kulot bet dil. That doesn't mean that. And it's not really a quantitative combination. It is not at all. That concept is completely different in its quality and its depth than anything that we usually deal with or we learn to deal with our life. This combination of quickness and moderation comes to us to a different types of achievement, different type of zrizut, and also that metinut, that moderation, reflects itself into a different type of moderations that we usually are aware of or we live through in life, and so on and so forth. This is basically a rhythm of life. We're talking about a rhythm of life here that has both in the same time merits, in other words, enthusiasm, ambition to go, and opening and acceptance of the surrounding around you. There is a awareness to learning of processes that's happening around you, things that are happening around you, and rejuvenation on the other side. And together with that, the time to really digest, think, process whatever it is that we learned. Which is, if you see so far, if I'm able to portray myself appropriately, it's quite different than what we get used to today. I mean, even if we go to college, we get a degree, we stop learning, that's it. We go to yeshiva, we finish yeshiva, we stop learning, that's it. There is never such a combination of balance. That's why we live life that are really unbalanced life. Our life are disastrous. If you're worthy at all to call it life, I don't know if that's life. Maybe we are alive. But again, as I always say, we are alive but not living. I mean, we are on a road to nowhere, chasing, running, nothing. And then you have the people who are completely the opposite. They don't want to do anything, and for them, as long as you give them free dope and free government, handouts, they're okay. They have no ambition whatsoever. This is completely different than what we are aware of, and that's the beauty of what the Baal Shem Tov is trying to tell us. The attention, which is very acute, very sensitive, is not to lose the refined aspects of life, that really refined points of life in an effort to really swallow that in completely on the other hand. In other words, let's say, for example, when you go on a trip, right? You go on a trip, there's different types of trips. You guys went on a trip that was a little different. when you had time to really, there's no plan, there's no, everything is to a change, and you're experiencing in the now whatever is happening. I mean, right now you're experiencing, you're paying attention to the birds, or to the water, running water, or to the temperature, and you're paying attention to the little things that we usually don't, because we all either obsess about the past or concerned about the future, but we never deal with the now. We never appreciate the now. And if you don't appreciate the now, I mean, what in the world? What in the world? We became such a defective society that is unbelievable. They used to make parks for people to stroll in, and all kind of things to, with flowers. No, nobody does it today. Everybody's doing Google Drive. They're sitting down in front of the telephone, complete defectives that's having, whatever everybody throws at them. I want to see this thing. By the way, the congestion taxes that they had in the city, a few years ago they tried to. They had a couple of thousand people demonstrating. That's it. They say, okay, no more. Today they just bombard you with whatever they want. Tax after tax, no bags, no this, no that. Tax after tax. And why nobody's doing anything? Because everybody is on their telephone. Life doesn't make any difference to us. In other words, fine. You give me my free dope and I'm okay. That's what it is. We never pay attention to, I told somebody, I was walking with somebody like a few weeks ago, and I heard the morning dove, cooing. I said, oh, spring is here. He says to me, how do you know? I said, you hear that? He said, hear what? I said, the dove. That's a sign. Right? Kol hatov nishma be'artzenu. Shir HaShirim says, that's the time, the tov, it's called tov. That's the sign of spring, if you didn't know. You don't hear them cooing in the winter, it's only in the spring. Spring came. Do you feel the change in the air? Do you see the blooming of the trees, the budding of the trees? You pay attention, before you know, it's full again, and then it's full again, you didn't even know what happened. And that's how life goes down, year after year, day after day, week after week, even minute after minute, and we're not paying attention to anything, because we are stuck in this spiritual anxiety of, what do I do? What do I choose? So guess what? You choose for me. Which, going back to the whole fear, the whole thing that we said about not being able to choose. So the Baal Shem Tov says that quickness in moderation is a tremendous fix for arrogance, for ga'ava. And this is one of the things that we are very, very inflicted by in our generation. With tremendous Baal Ga'ava. Everybody is a professor at something, is an expert in something, and it doesn't make a difference if we're talking about economy or foreign relationship or everybody is an expert. But Lamaisa, there's no substance. Nobody sits down and really becomes a professor in chemistry or professor in math or professor for Far Asian. I mean, you should listen to some of these people. I love this show on the radio. It's called the Joan Batchelor Show. The guy has like really top-notch experts in the fields, and it's like going to college listening to this guy. I don't know, I listen to it on the way home. It's really amazing. I mean, it's like taking a course in history or whatever it is when he has the people, and you say, oh my goodness, these people are really experts. Compare with the shallowness of like, oh, some experts say that the prices of this will, the funniest thing is, if you're going to look at NFL, all these NFL experts, I usually know which team is going to do bad if they say that they are the candidate for the Super Bowl. I mean, I did a survey like a few years already. Oh yeah, they're going to be strong candidates for the Super Bowl. They like, number 32 or whatever. So the Baal Shem Tov comes and tells us that it is a tremendous tikkun for gava. The question is why. Each one from the sides, both the zrizut, the quickness, and the metinut, the moderation, when they are alone, at the end are like sinking mud to one another. In other words, in order to create movement, in order to create the cosmic movement, you need the two opposing forces to create a motion. If you only have one side, if you only have plus or you only have minus, nothing will go. In order to create a spark, you need the plus and the minus. This is what happens. You put them together. You need the opposites. You create movement by having opposites. You develop by creating and accepting and realizing that there are opposites in the world. And you know what? It's perfectly fine not to be, all has to be like me, and all have to think like me, and all have to dress like me. And it's perfectly fine. And they have a legitimate place in the universe as much as I do. And that is a tremendous fix for your ga'ava, for arrogance, that you think that everybody has to think like you. That everybody has to dress like you, or to talk like you, and to believe in the same thing that you do. Everybody has a choice. When you realize that, be a little, it makes you humble, makes you respectful, brings peace to the world. I expect you for who you are. So, and you should know that actually that makes you better on who you are by having other opposing forces, and without getting into like the influence of outside influence into Jewish life as a tremendous contributor in the evolvement of what we have Judaism today, because this is too controversial to say in front of the camera. I'll tell you that in person. I mean, how much we contribute and how much other cultures contribute to us, to our belief system, and things that we do today. So when we have this balance in between the two, right? Then you have a world that is based on harmony. However, when you have, let's say, for example, too eagerness, too overly achieving society, too quick, even if it's done for the benefit of others, it could really become a very clever cover-up for something much more sinister than that. Many people say, oh, I do this for the sake of that, I do it for the sake of this, He's moving, he's doing, but it's really for the sake of himself ultimately. It's all about self-promotion and so on and so forth. You need to have balance. You really need to have balance. You need to settle down. That's why basically we need to internalize, and we need to come up with, is to find that space inside of us that would allow us to create this balance, the point of equilibrium, internal equilibrium, that would allow us to move and to go to achieve and to do things, and yet this moderation to accept the other, to open up ourselves and so on and so forth. Only then we could create a path, a highway in which life streams through. That's called Gesher HaChaim, the bridge of life. Otherwise you are simply sinking in within your own, it's like quicksand. Once you start spinning around, it's like a car that is stuck, let's say, for example, in the dunes. Once you're spinning your wheels a little too much within yourself without any opposing force, you're simply sinking down. I cannot think of a better example than that. Why do you move forward when you drive a car? Because there's friction. Because there's friction, you move forward. Because we want to go this way, this one puts you the other way, and then you go forward. So that is something that we need to do. I think it's time for us to start celebrating life, actually living life. Before we celebrate life, we have to live life. And we have to find this point of moderation inside of us. Quickness and moderation. In other words, don't fall asleep on the job. You need to go on, you need to move, you need to get going, and so on and so forth. Because if you're just going to stay in one place, again, let's use an example of a car. You're going to have rot in your tires, and it's going to be wobbly. When I bought my car, the car stood for 5 years. The wheels seemed perfectly fine. There was a lot of thread on them, but they were wobbly. I thought I'm like, getting seasick from just driving the car. It was crazy. I changed the tires. The car was zooming. So you can't stay in one place, and you can't spin your tires, like do burnouts, because you're not going to have any tires. You understand? Only when there is quickness in moderation, you can actually go forward. And it's okay to have opposing things. It's okay to not to be the same like everybody else. So if everybody goes to do something, you can do something else, that's fine. Don't criticize them, but hopefully they won't criticize you. So that's the bridge, Has anybody seen the bridge? That's the bridge that we all have to pass on it. And, when everybody comes to in front of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, that's how we could accept other people and also create things while we're at it without destroying too much. We don't want to be like Khomeinis in what's the name, in Iran, and yet we don't want to be like those liberals that the brains are so open-minded that the brain's full of dads. Somewhere in between. So at that point, have a great day.